This week on Healthy Living, experts say hunger and malnutrition are rising at an alarming rate in parts of the world. We'll have a glimpse of the devastation caused by the worst drought in 40 years in northern Kenya. And Professor Barry Popkin of the University of North Carolina discusses the impact of malnutrition and shares some solutions. Plus, researchers have discovered the possible roots of gray hair. These stories and more in this edition of Healthy Living. Hello and welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Linor Moudou. Fatigue, dizziness, and weight loss are some symptoms of malnutrition. So is obesity. Malnutrition is characterized by inadequate or excessive nutrient intake and unbalanced intake of vital nutrients or poor quality of diet. People who don't get enough food often experience hunger, which can eventually result in malnutrition. The United Nations says world hunger is affecting nearly 10% of people globally. From 2019 to 2022, the number of undernourished people grew by as many as 150 million, a crisis driven largely by conflict, climate change, and the COVID-19 pandemic. In East Africa, drought has deepened the hunger crisis due to the last 5 consecutive failed rainy seasons, wiping out livestock and crops in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Somalia. In the documentary Hunger Voices, VOA's Omari Kaseko captured the devastating impact of the worst drought in 40 years in the northern part of the country. Here is an excerpt.
Most of the children here are malnourished. There is no water. The water is salty, so that means they cannot drink. The how drought has really affected the community. Malnourished children are either given SFP or plumpy nut or plumpy sap. You might find at the household level, the mother has nothing to cook for her other children. So the only source of food is that plumpy nut, which she has been given by the nutritionist.
There is increasing number of cases of malnutrition currently due to the ravaging drought and the poor socioeconomic status of the people living here. Once they land in our hospital, we basically manage them. There are ones that are more severe than others, and the length of the hospital stay depends on the severity. There are those that stay within a few days, and some of them stay as long as 1 month. And the worst scenario, we even get mortalities.
Initially, I brought him for Wargadad to Tarja, and I was told if he doesn't get better, we should bring him back. But his situation got worse, and we don't have good doctors who are experienced. Thank God I came to Algier, where he was treated, and his situation is better than before. But he still has a swollen stomach. The drought has affected the area, so the children are malnourished because of diseases and hunger. In the morning, we prepare a small breakfast, like pancakes. We don't have money anymore to make dinner in the evening. The livestock we used to depend on has been affected by the drought.
The main problem currently we are facing was delayed presentation. They come in advanced stage where minimal can be done. There has been shortage of resources, but it's not the primary problem.
I came here because my child was very sick. He had difficulty breathing, he lacks nutrients, and he doesn't breastfeed well. I traveled from Bajaja for 2 hours. The other children are also the same. They lack nutrients and they are hungry due to lack of food. The other children are staying with their father alone, no one else. And the father is someone who is sick and cannot take care of the children.
A UN conference held recently to raise funds to help with the climate crisis, hunger and displacements in the Horn of Africa did not meet its $5 billion goal, generating less than $1 billion. Now to Nigeria, where the UN says 4 million people in the northeast are facing severe food shortages as global aid is stretched thin. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs took journalists to the region to see the worsening situation. Timothy Obiezu files this report from Maiduguri in Nigeria's Borno state.
This bustling city does not reflect the terror that lurks on the fringes, Islamist militants at war with the government. But even here, young kids are reeling from the impact of devastating food shortages worsened by conflict. Days ago, Bintu Hassan's 2-year-old son arrived at this hospital ward, wasted and hypoglycemic. She says she's already suffered too much loss.
I gave birth to 4 children, but 2 died due to malnutrition. I have 2 left, and this one is also sick. I was referred to this place.
More than 700,000 kids in Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe states suffer from severe acute malnutrition, according to the United Nations. The UN says the situation could get worse between June and September, the so-called hunger gap period when food stocks from the previous harvest traditionally run out. Last year's bumper harvest was disrupted by Nigeria's worst flooding in a decade.
With 600,000 hectares of farmland destroyed, washed away, there will in the immediate future be serious food shortages.
And there isn't enough food aid to go around. This is Ran, a community near Nigeria's border with Cameroon. Residents say no aid has arrived here in 8 months. Kelu Modu says without much food, she couldn't breastfeed her baby and she became malnourished.
When I gave birth to this baby, there was not enough breast milk to feed the baby with, and the baby started vomiting and also had diarrhea.
The food shortage is in part a result of Russia's war in Ukraine and the recent crisis in Sudan. But officials say Nigeria's inflation and recent currency reform policy also constrained people's ability to buy food. UNICEF Nutrition Manager Karanvir Singh says despite crucial aid diverted to other global emergencies, Nigeria is still getting food supplies.
The global package for different, because of different emergencies in the world is shrinking, but presently we are well placed. But of course, we would need continued support.
Nigerian security forces have significantly degraded the fighting power of the militants. But the country is still at war, and until that is over, millions will be fighting a different type of war, hunger. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Maiduguri, Borno State, Nigeria.
When does malnutrition lead to excessive weight loss or excessive weight gain? We asked Professor Barry Popkin, director of the University of North Carolina Interdisciplinary Obesity Program and the Carla Smith Chambly Distinguished Professor of Global Nutrition School of Public Health. Take a look.
So there are 2 faces of malnutrition in the world. We think more of the undernutrition side as being stunted, which is the loss of length, and it really emerges in the first 1,000 days of life with poor feeding during pregnancy, other diseases and infections that can affect it. So between that, it causes the stunting, which leads to what we call malnutrition. The other side of the coin is overweight and obesity. And that's essentially higher body weight for your height, and it's how we measure it. And it has grown enormously rapidly in sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia and East Asia over the last 20 years. Today, There's not a single country in low and middle income world where there's not 20% overweight and obese adults. What's happened is because of that rapid increase in overweight, we see what we call a double burden. We can see in the same household, we can certainly see in the same community, and we see in the same nation high rates of overweight and obesity. And what's important, it's become cheap to get obese because of the proliferation of fatty, salty, high sugar kinds of food that have really increased weight. And at the same time, physical activity has been declining with modern technology of all sorts, not only in urban, but in rural areas across both regions. Among infants in Africa and Asia, we're finding 20 to 25% of what the infants are consuming, even in rural areas, is a highly processed junk food. And so taxing, finding ways to cut the demand and cut the consumption of those products will help. There's healthier school feeding, which benefits both sides of the coin, getting rid of the highly processed school meals, giving them healthier meals with more fruits and vegetables and grain and legumes and other pulses that are very healthy. Well, initially, with the kind of hunger they're facing, we want to give them grains and staples that also have a lot of legumes and healthier things in them, so there's adequate protein to go along with just the carbohydrates and other things.
Good news for those who hate the evidence of aging. New research conducted by scientists at New York University has uncovered a mystery behind the graying of hair. The researchers say hair pigmentation is an active process involving stem cells that travel up and down the hair follicle to produce pigment. As people age, some of the stem cells stop making this journey and become stranded in a small pouch-like area near the top of the hair follicle. Getting stuck means no pigment cells, which means gray hair. The researchers say restoring mobility of the cells could allow the continuation of pigment production, eliminating graying hair. The study was conducted on mice, and further research is needed to determine whether these findings can apply to humans as well. New technology is using augmented reality for hearing-impaired people to see the words that are being spoken around them in real time. Deanna Mitchell has more in this week's Log On.
For the blind and visually impaired, getting around often means using a guide dog or a walking stick. But in Japan, there are helpful clues right beneath your feet. Braille blocks. These tactile pavement surfaces have spread across the world, guiding users with physical cues they can feel. Japanese startup Ashirase is taking the idea a step further, bringing the external sensations in. The Ashirase in-shoe navigation system guides users with vibrations and motion sensors placed inside their shoes.
There are 3 area vibrator inside the one device, and you need to use both devices on both shoes.
With the smart devices connected to an app via Bluetooth, users enter their destination and a route is mapped out. Motion sensors detect the direction a user is heading in and vibrate on either the left or right foot, indicating which way to go. The speed of vibrations also varies.
The tempo of vibration is corresponding to the distance to the corner. When user approach to the corner, tempo of vibration increases.
The developers say these cues allow blind and visually impaired users to focus on gathering other important information about their surroundings. They say with Ashirase, directions are one less thing to worry about. Tina Trin, VOA News, Las Vegas.
That's our show for today. For more health news, wellness tips, and medical breakthroughs, stay connected to Voice of America at voaafrica.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Linor Moudou. Until next time, stay well and strive to make every day